What is happening, babe? Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Huddle presented by the Huddle Chat Sports Network. Today, we're discussing everything that happened in week 5 and getting into that week 6 waiver wire. It's Tuesday morning, so we got to bring you guys all the important information that we have to kind of get that leg up on those idiots in your fantasy football league. Now, I got to be honest with you guys. Coming into this week, we only have 2 bye weeks, thankfully, which is really nice for us, and we have a slew of injuries. However, there are a ton of people on the waiver wire right now that I think are going to be fool's gold. We're going to really take a deep dive and really discuss the people that we're going to really be able to count on in this coming weeks, in these next few weeks, and the people that we really can take the deep dive on and let your league mates draft, spend their FAAB on, spend their number one waiver priorities on, and that way you can kind of pick through the dust and get all the gold nuggets that are left over at the end of the day. Now, before we get started, as always, make sure you smash that like button, hit the button that looks like this one right here. And you guys have no idea how much it helps me out. Plus, it helps me realize what kind of episodes you guys like to make, what episodes I need to spend more effort on, what episodes get more energy. And I've been reading a lot of comments. Y'all have been extremely helpful with the comments in these last couple of episodes. Giving me some ideas like timestamps, things like that I can do just to make my episodes better. And I appreciate that from all of y'all. So please keep that coming. Never be afraid to drop a comment. Never be afraid to tell me I could do something better. And I got a couple of those comments I'm going to be making a specific response to here on a couple of videos coming up in the next few episodes. Now, before we get started, as always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you drop down below and hit that subscriptions bar as well as that notifications bell. That way you never miss a beat and you always get that leg up on all those idiots in your fantasy football league. Now, we're going to get started. We're going to talk about the top priorities if they are still available in your fantasy football league. Now, they may not be available in a lot of the leagues that are out there right now, but the first one, the one that's going to be the most available, or the one that's going to be the most priority if it's still available, it's going to be Rico Dowdle. I mean, this last week, we saw Rico Dowdle is going to be the bell cow. He's a better running back than he ever really was with the Dallas Cowboys. So far with the Carolina Panthers, he's coming off 26 touches, 234 yards. He's got immediate running back 1, running back 2 volume. So he has a safe floor you'd like to look at least while Chuba Hubbard is out. And with how good he's playing, you're hard-pressed to think that he might not be carving his own role into this offense right here in Carolina. So I think Rico Dowdle, if he's still available, has got to be your number one priority. If he's still out there, I'd be willing to drop up to 40%. 25% I'd be willing to go as low as, but I mean, if you are really in running back need, and a lot of people are in running back need right now, especially with a lot of the crazy injuries and some of the injuries to the handcuffs that have happened in these past few weeks, I think Rico Dowdle is definitely somebody that I'd spend a lot on. I'd be willing to drop a big lump sum of my FAAB to go ahead and get Rico Dowdle. So make sure y'all go ahead and snatch Rico up off the waiver wire. Now, the next players we're going to be talking about are going to be kind of simple. Sticking with the running backs, we're going to go kind of in order of position today in the running back position. Now, the big news is going to be Omarion Hampton from the Los Angeles Chargers going out this week. He was seen in a walking boot at the end of the game. It could be just a precautionary thing, but it could also be a big injury for Omarion Hampton. So you're looking at Omarion Hampton missing time. The 2 biggest benefactors are going to be Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins. They're on the Los Angeles Chargers offense. We're going to discuss those running back additions right now. Realistically, Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins, I'm not really sold on either of them. Both of them are going to split a lot of carries. I think Vidal is going to be the more beneficial player to have on your roster. You're looking at Vidal being more included in the passing game in this offense, especially with how terrible the offensive line has been with all the injuries they've taken. You're looking at Kamani Vidal. He's being someone that's going to be involved in the passing game, and in this offense, they're running in the passing game more often than not. So Vidal, I think, is the more valuable pick amongst the 2 running backs. Haskins is going to be more of your true running back, but he's also only averaging 3 yards per carry in his NFL career. So you're looking at Hassan Haskins being somebody that I'm not really willing to spend that much FAAB on. You're looking at them both being owned in very little percentage of leagues. I know I don't have it up in the graphic on the screen. Looking at Haskins being owned in about 3% of leagues, and Vidal is being owned in about 1% of leagues right now. Like I said, Omarion Hampton has that foot injuries, so we don't know how long it's going to be that he's going to be out. They did put him on IR, so we're looking at a minimum of 4 weeks. They're looking at both backs playing 14 snaps this past week, so neither one of them is getting really terribly involved in the offense more than the other. It's an even split. They do have good upcoming matchups, so I do think both should be rostered, but I do think they're fool's gold. I think they're going to lead to 4 weeks of disappointment. So you're looking at me, not really looking at them, but I do think Kendre Miller is the priority running back ad if he is still available in your league. He's available in 31, or he's only owned in 31% of leagues. And you're looking at Kendre Miller seeing a snap share increase to 31% this week in week 5. You're looking at him out touching Alvin Kamara this week, out snapping Alvin Kamara this week. He had more carries. Alvin Kamara had 10 carries to Alvin Kamara's 8 carries. And you're looking at him handling most of the late game work, most of the 2-minute snaps as well, most of the value targets. One of the most beneficial things, one of the most exciting things about Kendre Miller is the potential that he may get traded to a different, or that Alvin Kamara may get traded to a different team here by the end of the November trade deadline. So you're looking at him, Kendre Miller, being a potential running back that could be a top 24 running back week in and week out, especially if Alvin Kamara's on his way out the door. Then a couple of late round flyers we have down here. Brashard Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think I like him the least. I probably should have put him underneath Isaiah Davis on the graphic. But you're looking at Brashard Smith. He should be rostered in 12-team leagues as a stash. However, you're not really having the ability to play him right now, just with how much the Kansas City Chiefs are trusting Isaiah Pacheco and are trusting Kareem Hunt. So we're going to not have to be able to really trust Brashard Smith at the current moment. But with what he's getting at the current moment, he's owned in a decent enough amount of, or he's available in a decent enough amount of leagues that you can stash him if you have the roster space and see what happens. I think later on in the season, as the season wears on, as this offense kind of returns to its true form, you're looking at Brashard Smith getting some opportunity, and you're looking at him getting a lot of goal line work as well. So I think his touchdown prop is definitely going to cash in here eventually at some point. If you want to throw in a couple of dollars on a potential lottery ticket at touchdowns, I think that Brashard Smith is one of them, but I don't think he's playable on your fantasy football roster. On the other hand, Isaiah Davis, I do think is very similar to the Kendre Miller situation. You're looking at Braylon Allen currently being out and currently being on injured reserve, but on top of that, you're looking at Breece Hall potentially being at the end of the last year of his rookie contract, being that the Jets are pretty much looking at a complete rebuild at the current moment and want to avoid spending an overpriced contract on a running back during the year when he's going to get his most expensive contract. So you're looking at Isaiah Davis really having the potential to step up if Breece Hall gets moved by the trade deadline. Like I said, he's in a similar boat to Kendre Miller, but you're looking at Isaiah Davis also getting involved heavily in that 2-minute and that 4-minute offense when it comes down to those 2-minute and 4-minute drills. When he's on the field, it definitely speaks to the trust that they do have in him, because he's in a lot of the value points in the game. He's a definitely must add as far as a stash player, especially in deep leagues or in a very competitive league, or if you just have Breece Hall and you want to have the handcuff to Breece Hall just in case something happens. Now, moving on from the running back situation, we're going to talk about the wide receivers. Before we do talk about the wide receivers, I want to make sure that I ask you guys again to smash that like button if you haven't, and drop a comment below. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if I can do anything better for you guys. Let me know how you like some of the changes that have been going on in this episode and in the season so far that we have. Now, moving on with the wide receivers, we're going to be talking about Kendrick Bourne first and foremost. Kendrick Bourne is one of those players that I truly think is going to be fool's gold for you. Sorry, we got that old running back graphic up there still. Looking at pulling up that Kendrick Bourne graphic here really quick. So with the Kendrick Bourne and Isaiah Bond, you're looking at those being the two main wide receiver pickups that you have this week. You're looking at Kendrick Bourne, I think, being fool's gold. You're looking at him coming off 10 receptions, off 11 targets. He had 142 yards, but you're also looking at Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall not being involved in this game, George Kittle not being involved in this game. So he had a 22.4% target share and a 25% first read share in this game. He's a veteran and he's 30 years old. We know what we're going to get out of Kendrick Bourne. He's a volatile producer. I think he's fool's gold. Like I've told you guys, he's purely an injury-driven anomaly at this point. If Ricky Pearsall or Juwan Jennings, if not both of them, returns, you're looking at him at best being a low floor, volatile floor flex play that you can have in your offense if you're in desperate need. And there are a lot of better streaming options out there. You only continue to stream Kendrick Bourne if injuries persist. Now, on the other side, I'm looking at Isaiah Bond as somebody that I talked about last week in the same episode. And I think that Isaiah Bond needs to be rostered at this point. You're looking at him increasing to a 71.1% route share this week. He had 27 routes ran on 37 dropbacks. And then you're looking at Cedric Tillman's injury also increasing his playability as well this week. And the season for the remainder of that Cedric Tillman injury. You're looking at Isaiah Bond having a lead speedy run of 4.340, and he's one one of the Cleveland Browns' best separators. You got Jerry Jeudy taking all of the important defensive coverage, got him taking that number one cornerback coverage. Now you're looking at this week, Isaiah Bond didn't pan out. Now it's big part of the thing is Dillon Gabriel. You're looking at Dillon Gabriel, and the whole entire Cleveland Browns offense is going to build a lot more chemistry as we go. He's a rookie quarterback, and he's a young quarterback who hasn't played with this offense for the first 5 weeks of the season. So I think that with Dillon Gabriel and Kendrick Bourne's chemistry getting better, you're looking at Kendrick Bourne only getting better. Sorry about the Isaiah Bond. You're looking at Isaiah Bond's chemistry with Dillon Gabriel as it continues to grow. His value is only going to continue to grow, and he's going to be at least a safe floor flex that you may be able to plug and play in your offense or in your roster at any given point. Now, moving on to the most, I think, important part of the waiver wires this week is going to be the tight ends in the waiver wire this week. Now, this week, when you look at the waiver wire, there's really not much to speak about on the waiver wire. Now, in the tight ends, even I think that there's really only one that I really like, and that's going to be Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor is going to be the most interesting addition. He's probably the biggest must add that I have on this week's waiver wire episode. You're looking at him having back-to-back strong fantasy weeks. He's leading the Jets in targets at the current moment, at least in week 5. We had a 27.3% target share this week. He had 9 receptions on 12 targets for 67 yards. He ran 80% of the routes in week 5. For the season, he's second on the team in target share. He's got an 18.9% target share, which is only behind Garrett Wilson. And his upcoming schedule includes Carolina and Cincinnati, which are both extremely favorable matchups. He's like I said, he's my top priority at waiver wire this week. He's getting a lot of catches, running a lot of routes, and he really has become the Jets' true number 2 wide receiver because the Jets lack a number 2 option in the passing game behind Garrett Wilson. He's got a very favorable schedule coming up, and he's honestly offering tight end 1 value, and he's plug and playable. You can pick him up off the waiver wire and start him this week. He's my priority. He's my priority ad. I'd be willing to spend up to 30% of my FAAB to grab him, especially if you need a tight end. If you don't need tight end, you want to just keep your league mates from getting him tossed 10, 12, 15% out there, you might still be able to get him if people aren't paying enough attention. Now, then we also have Theo Johnson from the New York Giants. I think Theo Johnson is going to be somebody that's going to offer you a low floor, but what tight end isn't offering you a low floor at the current moment? Over the last 2 weeks, you're looking at Theo Johnson having a 20.3% target share. He's got 9 passes on 12 targets for 50 yards and 3 touchdowns. You're looking at 6 catches, 33 yards, and 2 touchdowns in week 5. He's one of Jaxson Dart's favorite targets so far. Now you're looking at Theo Johnson being a little bit touchdown dependent. He hasn't surpassed 34 yards receiving yet. Now with those 3 touchdowns, it has looked very favorable. I do think that's kind of unsustainable, that production that he's had in the end zone. Now you are looking at him being tied with Wan'Dale Robinson in the lead for the target share on the team at 20.3% over the last 2 games, but you're not going to expect a ton of yards from him. He's more of a safety blanket, more of a dump-off player, and he's got a tough schedule upcoming. It's making him a little bit less appealing to me than Mason Taylor. I'm not really big on him at the current moment. Now, wrapping things up, of course, you got A.J. Barner for the Seattle Seahawks, 7 passes, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns in week 5, and he scored 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. He's playing 80% snaps. You would think that you would go out and buy him, but he's another one that I think is fool's gold. I'm not really interested in him as a high priority waiver wire ad. He's a solid spot starter, a solid if you need somebody during a bye week, if you need somebody due to an injury, even like a Lamar Jackson injury to cover in through that. AJ Barner, it might be fine to fill in, just because of his red zone usage, but he's not somebody that I want to add. Like I said, I would prefer to have Mason Taylor or Theo Johnson if you're in need of a tight end. And then another person you might be able to throw a little something out there on is going to be Michael Mayer from the Las Vegas Raiders. You're looking at Brock Bowers, still going to be out this week, and then they have a week 8 bye. So you're looking at him missing week 6. If he misses week 7 potentially as well, I mean, they're going to sit him down for the next 3 weeks. So if you're looking at him missing this week, Brock Bowers may not be available again in week 7, leading you to have a Michael Mayer at least usable for the next 2 weeks. So he's somebody that you can also use as a streaming option as well. Now, a couple of defensive options we can go with. Some of them may not be available, but some of them might be just because of the bye week. Some people tend to drop defenses off their team, not wanting to hold 2 defenses. And in that case, you might be able to snag some of these defenses. But you got the Green Bay Packers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I like that matchup. Looking at the Los Angeles Rams at the Baltimore Ravens, as long as Lamar Jackson still isn't playing. You look at the New England Patriots playing the New Orleans Saints. I love that defensive matchup. The Indianapolis Colts defense has been playing really well, and they have a big potential to score points on defense as well. And they're playing the Arizona Cardinals this week. I like that defense. Then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cleveland Browns with their rookie quarterback Dylan Gabriel in his second game, and then the Cleveland Browns at the Steelers as well on the opposite side of the ball. So that's going to kind of do it for the Waiver Wire episode today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in every week in and week out. We're getting things going. We're building more and more episodes this week. We're going to break our stardoms and situms into about 2 or 3 different episodes this week to keep you guys from wasting too much of your time. And we're going to throw in a sleepers episode at the end of the week. So make sure you stay tuned. If you made it this far and haven't smashed the like button quite yet, what the heck are you doing? Now, as always, make sure you keep your chins up and your attitude down. I'm going to see y'all next time, ladies and gentlemen. Peace out.